Hi, Housen.
Hey, eventually I get there.
Yeah,
Every time. Technology. I don't know.
that
How
doesn't
are
matter.
you?
I'm good. Yeah, yeah. You had a good week.
Yeah, great. Everybody safe and healthy there in Blighty.
Just about. It is getting a bit scary, I must admit. They think they're not going to put us in lockdown for Christmas like they did last year because I don't think the British
Yeah,
people would stomach that. But whether in January something will happen, they'll probably shut it down in January for a while. But, how's
well, it's a different world.
yeah? How's the cases with you? Is it America okay?
Yeah, we're managing, I suppose. I don't want to be glib about it because a lot of people have died, and now we've got horrible tornadoes through the Midwest, and
Yeah, see all that on the news.
so evidently we have offended the gods.
Well, yeah, if it's not global warming, it's
Yeah,
kilobytes.
I
And
just shake my head, and I'm grateful that for what I have. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
complain
yeah,
about what I don't have.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's good to it puts in perspective, doesn't it? Really, our our place and our existence and what we have.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's one good thing that comes from it, but probably a plague of locusts next or something like that.
Too much headroom, Harrison. Okay.
Okay, so do you have the copy of Superman 4 to hand?
Uh, I think I've tried to destroy all of them, but no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It wouldn't be the first, I don't think.
I do this every time.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, that's just fine. Yeah.
Okay, my pet peeve is why do they put all the plugs on the back of, well, I'll have to have a little talk with Apple later.
I think Apple just like to be different, don't they?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they don't want to make it easy.
No.
Come on. All right. Okay.
you there?
Yes, I'm here, and I've got Superman 4, the Warner Brothers picture logo.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so everybody watching along, if they just want to get their copy of Superman 4 ready, if you haven't already got it. So just want to give you sort of maybe 30 seconds or so just to get ready, then we'll press play. So we'll pause on the beginning of the Warner Brothers logo, and then we'll press play. I'll do a little countdown, and then we'll begin.
I'm at 0.06.
0.06. Okay, I'll make sure I'm the same. Okay, so we're starting roughly 6 seconds in to the Warner Bros. Logo. As long as we're all kind of about, within 20 seconds or so of each other, then that's, I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. So that should be fine. Okay. So if anybody's having technical issues getting the video up, let me know. If not, we'll begin in a moment or so.
Okay. Gonna go get my coffee.
Okay.
Don't go away.
We won't. Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks, Ian. Yeah, it's one of the 7-Eleven cups that they released for the film back in '87. So it's one of the original promotional cups. There were 8 of these, and that one's number 3. And I bought the whole set off eBay from America about a year or so ago. And if I can't big them out for an event like this, then one can I really. Okay, glad you're ready, Justin. Hope you're ready, Ian, as well, and everybody else. I think we might have a few people running a bit late, so they'll probably join us as the event goes on, or we might have issues with time zones or something like that. So I think we're all ready to go. Yeah, it's the same as my version. Yeah, so it's all the so anybody got their copies, all the versions on DVD and Blu-ray, all the official ones at the very least are 1 hour and 29 minutes. So 89 minutes. The international cut, which was only ever available on VHS and Japanese Laserdisc and things like that, that was 92 minutes, but never released on DVD or Blu-ray. Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Got my Superman cup today.
Nice.
One of the,
Very nice.
One of the Slurpee cups that they use in the promotional run of the film. So one of the very few bits of merchandise they did for the film, but quite happy with that one. It's a set of 8, and I got all 8, but that's my geekiness setting in. So yeah, I think we'll get started, Harrison. So I just want to welcome everybody to this watch along of Superman 4, and thank you, Harrison, for joining me this evening. Before we actually play the video, I just wanted to start just by last time we were talking about Superman. We mentioned Richard Conway, and I don't know if you heard, Howson, but he sadly passed away this April. Did you know that?
It, yes, somebody had said that.
Yeah, yeah,
It makes me very sad
yeah,
because I would definitely one of the good people, always in amazing shape. He ran every day, so
Hmm.
I don't know. I yeah.
Because one of those.
As one gets older,
Hmm.
like myself, you lose more friends.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's an obvious statement,
Hmm.
but you know, there are times I think I don't want to be the last man standing. Well, I don't have a choice, I guess. But anyway, very fond memories of
Yeah.
Richard Conway. Amazing work, just and sweetest guy. I never saw him get angry at anybody, whereas I would fly off the handle at a moment's notice.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because when I was doing my research, I was just you find out, of course, who's no longer with us, and unfortunately, no, his death I think was kind of unreported, which I think was a bit sad. It doesn't seem to have his obituary anywhere on any film sites, and I was always quite sad when somebody, a giant like himself, just gets sort of a bit lost in the noise of life, shall we say? But,
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll mention working with Richard as we go along this evening. So I'll do a countdown for 5, then we'll press play. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Okay. So Warner Bros. Logo.
Sorry.
Did you press play, Harrison?
Did I try? No.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So sorry. We start again. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Play. Yeah. Okay. So we open with the titles that Martin Asbury was supervising. So this was something you sort of handed over to him, I guess, in part of the production.
Sorry.
So we're watching now the titles that Martin Asbury supervised.
Well, let me say that, well, what is the obvious, or maybe not.
Hmm.
Your friend did wonderful. Aaron, is that his name? Aaron.
Oh, Alan Price, yeah.
Yeah, what amazing. That's what it could have been.
Hmm.
But this film was just doomed to failure.
Hmm.
If it hadn't been for Christopher Reeve and his contribution and his desire to get it made, it wouldn't have seen the light of day. But the cheapness of it and the constant cutting of sequences and budget was dreadful. And I place the blame directly a little bit shared by Warner Brothers, who basically said, this is it. We've sold the rights to these two Israelis. And they were just con men, flat out con men. Yeah. And they just they made a lot of really crappy movies. And I just shake my head because it could have been good. Could have been, now maybe not great, but you had Christopher Reeve, and he always God bless him, he always had an upbeat attitude. And he was a wonderful man, very giving and very understanding, and wanted to do the right thing. And it was and the director, poor Sidney Fury, his hands were tied.
Yeah.
I like this sequence, by the way. So
It's
starts
nice.
off with a good sequence, and then yeah.
It's nicely done, isn't it? Oh, Harrison, could you turn the DVD volume down a little bit?
The what? Sorry?
The DVD volume on your DVD. I think it's just coming. I'm just hearing it a bit.
Can you hear it now?
Could you just turn it down so I can't? Because otherwise it might
down.
Yeah. Otherwise it might.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I was just going to hear you perfectly. That was all.
No, I can't hear you. Shit.
Oh. Can you hear me now, Harrison?
Oh, geez, this technology, I just don't understand it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Lovely. So we just had a really good shot here when the space debris hits the cosmonaut. But on repeated viewing, if you slow it down, the space debris takes the head off the model of the cosmonaut. It sort of decapitates him, which is quite funny. But
I thought it was very clever because we shot looking up, and that would hide the wires.
Yeah. Must be. You don't see the wires in the sequence at all. It's
yeah.
It's very good visually. I mean, the shots of Christopher, they're repeated a few times, aren't they? Some of the effect shots are really.
Yeah. Then we've got one here that. Oh, jeez.
And I think also that just the suit isn't as vibrant in some of the shots, because I think you were saying because of the blue screen that it washes out the S, and it looks white, and it's not as good as say in the practical shots.
Well, yeah.
But it's a nice little opening, though, isn't it? I think it's a nice little opening scene, and it.
Yes, and there was serendipity to get this overcast weather. Well, of course, in England, it's always raining or something.
Yeah. This is a good day for us, isn't it? Really. And again, this is a very good reconstruction, a very faithful set to the first Superman film. But we should say, Harrison, not only were you the visual effects supervisor for this, but also one of the second unit directors. So maybe as we go along, maybe if you want to point out bits where you were on set for, or because I don't know if you would have been involved in the scenes we're seeing now in Smallville in terms of.
Well, it's all kind of coming back to me in drips and drabs. It's been a long time, and I'm not quite sure. I mean, the story is so disjointed that it's tough to. But that's here nor there. This is our first. Olsen, Lane and White did the effects, and that was a company set up in Burbank to do the majority of the visual effects, and it was kind of fun calling it Olsen, Lane and White because of the reference of Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Perry White. We thought that was very clever. Actually, I didn't make it up. It was made up by Clee Keith, who was on the staff. And the solarization, and boy, This works amazingly well, considering that Ford Bronco was shot just outside of LA. Well, no, we had to match it. There's one in England, and then we had to match. So that's England.
Yeah.
We had to go find a Ford Bronco that looked like that same color to do some other shots. Which credit goes to Michael Lessa, who worked at Olsen Lane and White. And I don't know how these guys pulled it off. It's just, and that's the thing about film in general, is that every shot is different. Every challenge is a new one. You can't say, well, we did this last time and it worked fine. Nah, it's going to be something a little bit different. And as the technology progresses, even today with digital, you're constantly challenged with another challenge. It may be as simple as logistics. You know, the grip truck broke down on the way to, well, what are we going to shoot? I don't know. We're going to have the crew standing around till they get fixed. You gotta navigate some very tricky waters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, certainly it's a great match of the English location and the American. You wouldn't know until you pointed out.
Not to mention weather. The weather's always changing and the lighting is changing, but the cinematographer.
Ernest Day. Ernest Day, I think, on this one.
Yeah. Never complained, and he was quick and he was good.
I don't know whether I think one of the things that hurts Superman 4 is just slightly the lighting is very well, the lighting for Superman 1 and 2 is very soft, and it just helps the special effects and the wires and that sort of stuff. And this is shot very much as you would say a normal action or drama, so there's nowhere to hide from a visual effects point of view.
Gene Hackman, what a genius. He could read the yellow pages of the phone book and make it sound real.
Yeah, he could, couldn't he?
And he contributed quite a bit to the film, the setups, and perhaps, always in a nice way, perhaps if I did this instead of that might be better, but didn't push it.
Yeah.
Because this is, when you look at this is so outrageous. And you don't quite know, well, all the Superman movies are crazy comic book stuff, but somehow this tries to work, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think one of the elements of this one is that I think in the script it was supposed to set on like a highway in America, and Lenny, the idea that a car would just conceivably drive by and could be inconspicuous, but for a car to drive into this disused, this quarry that you couldn't find if you were trying, sort of. Some of the reality, I think, is lost because of the constraints, and then perhaps that makes the more fantastical stuff more unbelievable.
Look at the guys in the back just standing there. I mean, come on. Give them something to do. Give them something.
Yeah, it's a lack of energy, isn't there, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's well, directing is very difficult. And I've only directed one thing,
Hmm.
and you're out there all alone.
Hmm. I mean, did Sidney Fury feel like he was alone in that respect, in terms of the budget, the producers?
He
Was it?
was, yeah, his hands were tied and everything kept changing and just, I
I
mean,
mean,
that looks nothing like New York subway. I mean, I'm sorry.
no, our tube system is so distinctive that it's
Yeah, so
take it. No. But I think because we were talking about a gentleman called Aaron Price, who has recreated some of these scenes with new visual
yeah,
effects. He's made it look like a New York subway. And if anybody's watching that hasn't seen his stuff, if you just type in Superman 4 Aaron Price on YouTube, his videos will pop up, and it's kind of what you would have done had you had the budget and the means back then. So
but at the same time, there are no excuses. I mean, I could say, oh yeah, the budget was cut, this happened, that happened, but
hmm,
you got to find a way. And unfortunately, it was at a time where um, we didn't have digital effects. We didn't have everything was kind of slapped together and done on the cheap, on the oh god, okay.
hmm. So I think this was a disused tube station. I think somewhere near Milton Keynes, I believe.
See, the perspectives off on that.
Hmm,
But you can't fix everything, even though, Aaron did an incredible job, but
hmm.
some he had to completely reconfigure
Yeah.
almost from scratch. So that's a nice thing to have. And
Hmm.
um, they can't all be close encounters of the third kind.
Yeah. I mean, these are nice sets. The Daily Planet here. They're again. I think it's the one of the British newspapers actual location. I think for a lot of this. I mean, would you have met Sam Wanamaker at all during the filming, or?
Well, generally you don't, you say hello, and that's
Hmm,
about it, because they've got their stuff to do.
hmm,
And sometimes actors don't necessarily want to, mingle with the crew. They want to stay in character. And let's face it, being an actor, you're vulnerable. You're going to be analyzed to death and criticized, and it's tough going.
hmm,
Uh, so the nice thing about uh, Christopher Reeve is that he was uh, he was very generous, both with his time
hmm.
and with he'd say, let's go to lunch. And I'd never had a person of his stature invite me to go to lunch.
Hmm.
And so it would be more than, it would be Sydney and some other people's, and we'd go across the street and eat, break bread. And
Wonderful.
he was just lovely about that. The budget was so, there were no trailers for the actors.
Hmm.
And so um, Chris said, well, I don't need a trailer. I'll sit there, I'll be there on set. It'll be quicker that way. I won't have to come out of my trailer to do all that. And so Sydney said, okay, I won't have one either. And so that's where you see the still I have of the two of them sitting there right by the set. And it was so efficient. It was so great because they could see the rehearsal, see what was happening, and just jump right in and go.
Yeah, so nice that they would down to earth enough to sort of not, because I think most actors would say I need a trailer when walking off the set, or so it's nice that they were, that common that sort of relationship they had.
This guy, the Russian premier. Is that the Russian premier
I
guy?
think that's the especially the president, I think. The American president, I think, that one.
Oh, the American president.
Yeah, okay. It was on the TV, and now we're in the school. Again, Milton Keynes location.
Thank goodness for Milton Keynes.
What was your reaction when you first heard that it's going to be Milton Keynes based?
I was just running along behind, trying to pick up the pieces and just go, okay, sounds good. I didn't have a problem. I thought it was a great solution.
Yeah.
Because it was good.
I mean, I think on a lot of the occasions, it really is a very good double for New York, and I gather there was lots of plans to make it even better, with lots of matte paintings and extending the vistas and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, which would have been miserable to try to do that. So, I mean, there was back in those days, a lot of this was we'll fix it in post or do a matte painting there. And I was never crazy about that idea. If you can spend just a little bit more time and effort and get the real thing, why not? But, tell that to a producer who's trying to save money. Yeah. Now, this is interesting. You've seen this before. And he breaks it, and then suddenly the bottom just drops out.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to happen when it hits, but it's
been quite.
Nobody notices.
No, I think we'll be rewinding it later on, having a look at it. But yeah, it's I think your eyes isn't taken to. I think Marion Hemingway is a great addition to the Superman cast.
It's nice to see the color balance so good, and I don't take that lightly, because we're shooting on film, and there was a new emulsion 5297 or something like that. It was from Kodak. And it was balanced so that you could use fluorescent and daylight, and it would look natural.
Yeah. Which
seems like, well, that's obvious, but no. That's why a lot of the first Superman movies were so expensive, because they were dealing with a very limited parameters and having to invent new ways of making Superman fly. And that had to be a real nightmare, because it would take them, to get one setup a day was a good. With the front projection and the slidey thingy. Slidey thingy. That's the technical term for it.
We did have a question that came in that's clearly by somebody who knows his stuff, a gentleman called David. He said, would you have filmed with David Lane in all the New York City second unit background plates throughout September 86 before the main unit began principal photography on the 29th of September 86? So would you have done, would you have been involved in the New York plates and stuff?
Yes. Well, I don't think it was done before first unit.
Yeah.
Could have been, but that was crazy, because I don't think we had. New York is very tough to film in, because you've got to get permits, you've got to get permission, and it's expensive. So we didn't get permits. We didn't get any permission. So we put the VistaVision camera in the back of a pickup truck. And so it was covered with a tarp. And so the driver would drive around, and then we'd be stopped at a stoplight, and somebody would pull the tarp off, turn on the camera, and we'd get the plate. And that was our MO. We're stealing shots right and left. And it's amazing we didn't all go to jail, but you know, the old line used to be, when I was a lot younger, I could get away with it, and somebody would come up, usually, you know, a policeman or a security guard, and come up and say, "What are you doing?" And we go, "It's a student film project, UCLA or NYU." You know, so.
Am I right that some of the Fortress of Solitude map paintings, that your father worked on some of those?
Yes, he did a lot of these. My thought was that in the earlier Superman movies, the Fortress of Solitude was very boring. It was all white, and looked like the interior of a hospital. And some reason they let me say, maybe we should make it green, like kryptonite, yada yada yada. And I think I like it.
Yeah.
A lot of the fans don't like it, but
well, I always assumed it was green because in Superman 2, when Superman loses his powers, he renounces them because he loves Lois, and then he comes back to this fortress later to find redemption and get them back. The fortress, because I think it's sort of dying a bit, has gone green. So I assumed it was to match the ending of Superman 2. But the fact that it was not that.
Absolutely, of course. Yes, that's. Yeah, I'm glad you figured that out.
Yeah, I never even questioned it. I thought it was just somebody doing their research here, and it's continuity. So.
Oh, Philip, you're very kind.
But yeah, it made sense to me. But and again, they're good, aren't they? The matte paintings in that sequence. There's some compositing issues that, again, the film suffers with because of the time constraints, but otherwise it's good stuff. And we're coming to a sequence which was, I think, Christopher Reeve's idea, the flight with Lois around. He's trying to think of what to do, and I think this was quite a last minute addition to the script. So it must have been a nightmare from a visual effects point of view, because it's a wall-to-wall effects for a few minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, well, every show has its challenges.
It's a lovely scene, and I think it's
yeah, it, yeah, too bad about these shots, but there you go. Actually, they look better now than they did at the time.
Because I know you're watching the DVD version of it, the original DVD. I'm watching the Blu-ray, and when they did that transfer, that's for the deluxe edition, which I think you've also got somewhere. The colours are even better, and some shots that look washed out here, visual effects ones, they restored the colour a bit more, so it has had some work on it.
Well, considering that Superman has a blue suit and you're shooting against blue screen, it shouldn't work at all.
And it must have been quite a heartbreaking decision you had to make to say we'll drop the back projection and do blue screen. It would be difficult.
Didn't have time. You couldn't. I mean, everything was just. They kept cutting the budget during post. I mean, it was a sin.
Yeah. Because they're part of David mentioned that the UK main unit filmed for about 12 weeks, right before Christmas, and then the flying unit blue screen additional month until March '87. He's got this from some article. Chris Reeve is quoted as saying he finished shooting on the 3rd of February at 4 p.m. to be precise. So then that would give you 5 months to finish the composites and get everything done. Oh, and David says the New York plates are wonderful. So you like some New York plate work. I agree, they're very, very good.
David Lane was one of the second unit directors, and he did a great job.
So David was good to work with. He sort of, got what you needed. Best you could.
I'm shaking my head.
I suppose if you had been able to get permits in New York, you could have got some plates of the UN or something like that. You could have used later on, but I suppose the last thing you wanted to do with no permits was park outside the UN and take pictures. But and when because was it your idea to set up Olsen, Lane and White? Was that your idea?
Say that again. Sorry.
You mentioned setting up Olsen, Lane and White earlier. Was that your initial? Was that mainly your idea to do that?
Well, it was part of the reason that I made promises at the beginning. I said we're going to establish a independent effects facility that will do a lot of the work because it'll be cheaper. And as I say, when the staff, one of the people on staff, there's the fire hydrant. Yeah, put a fire hydrant down there. Jeez.
An American school bus, as well.
American. Okay, so,
there is an establishing shot of the UN. Would you have shot that plate, or would that have been stock footage?
That was a still I shot. Another. I would take my. I had a Hasselblad, so had a wonderful camera. But the aspect ratio is 2.25 by 2.25. That's not important, but you could get these wonderful, crisp, clean images that, but as I say, of stealing all these shots. So it's a matter of, you know, especially the night shots in New York City, running around with a Hasselblad and a tripod, and put it down tripod and hope you don't get mugged, and just click, 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 click back into the car. It was crazy.
Was part of the idea of Olsen, Lane and White was it in any respect a long-term plan in setting up a new effects company, so if there was a Superman 5 or 6, you'd have something pre-built?
Oh, that's the hope. You want to establish a place that, because you're asking people to come work for a short period of time and then you're done. So not every place ends up being an ILM.
Yeah.
It's difficult because you really want to keep the core people, and if you don't have work for them, they'll go somewhere else, and then maybe you don't get them back because they're busy working on something else.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. This is stock footage, isn't it? The submarine?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought the stuff in the UN, again, a set dressing. I think it was just a sports hall of a school or something like that in Milton Keynes.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I've forgotten where it was, but it was in England. Yeah, it wasn't the UN.
No. Yeah, it wasn't until I went to the UN years later that I thought, okay, this doesn't look anything like the film, but it keeps your, you can believe it when you're watching it. The main thing.
This is a nice sequence, and again, this is Richard Conway with the miniature, and then only one of the things fired. So all 4 of the rockets are supposed to go, but no, they didn't go. No time to reshoot.
No.
That'll do.
When you first
rockets.
Yeah. And again, just looks, say, too static, and it's not quite three-dimensional enough behind Christopher Reeve, and nothing wrong with it particularly, but it's just,
well, you're asking the audience to believe something that is, they can't suspend their disbelief, because there's not enough story, there's not enough meat to allow this to happen.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of people have said, well, that wouldn't really happen. I'm going, yeah, that's why it's a movie. It's not supposed to be real. It's supposed to look like it's real. But so this was Gene Hackman's idea, to have the 2 girls come in. So it was always kind of,
well, why not?
Yeah, why not?
And I get a sense a lot of money went on this set, because it's very good.
It's a wonderful set. John Gracemark, what a great guy.
Would you have much to do with John Gracemark, or just somebody that's
Well, I was one of the few Americans on the set. Sidney is a Canadian, so and I love the concept of doing it in Art Deco, and the lamps and all the set dressing and stuff that's eclectic, that shouldn't make sense, but it kind of pulls it together. And
it's a very early appearance by British actor Jim Broadbent, who has gone on to be in lots of films, Bridget Jones and all sorts of big budget films. He's the one on the left next to the larger gentleman.
Uh-huh.
Very good stage actor as well.
I've forgotten all that stuff. Here, girls. What are they on their laptops back there?
They've got the magazines out till yeah. Because it's quite funny because when the first Nuclear Man's created and the deleted scenes, the monster's being brought to life. They're just doing their nails. They're just filing their nails in the back there. Because when I was when I did the event with Martin was saying that the Gene has a big love of art, and you would often talk to Martin. But again, were you able to share that with Gene, sort of that love of art, and to talk to him on the set?
Not too much. The thing about, he was the consummate pro. I mean, he'd show up on time, know his lines, hit his marks, and if you want another take, he'd do it again. And he wanted something a little different, not a problem. And I think that's very admirable in so many ways. There's none of this diva stuff of I don't feel like coming to work today, and I'm going to keep the crew, standing around. So in a lot of ways, it was such a positive experience.
Yeah.
And it's so corny that I don't know why it makes me laugh.
It's well done, isn't it? Gene's performance and
yeah, and this scene is a little bit of improv by Gene Hackman.
Yeah, I think it's always one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, now there's a little bit of continuity. Suddenly it's on the other side of the runway. And it turns around. So.
Just love his impatience with the missile.
Richard Conway, nice shot.
Great shot, isn't it? Yeah, it says "missed us." Yeah, that's lovely. Gene Hackman line, that one. So we're about to see the birth of Nuclear Man, or the second version of Nuclear Man, the prototype being in the deleted scenes that we talked about separately. Would you've had much to do with Mark Rosenthal and Lawrence Connor, the screenwriters? Would they have been about by the point that you were sort of on the film?
Not a lot. The original writers. Is that
Yeah.
Yeah. They had been not banned from the set, but they weren't real happy with the fact that Canon took over.
Mm.
And so they didn't have much input after that. And I know they weren't happy with the end result, and I can't blame them.
No, no. Yeah, because I think when I was talking to Martin, he was saying that he was coming up with ideas for the around the world battle, and Sidney Furie came up with a line, the first I have fun line, to explain why they went on this around the world sort of,
Yeah, first I have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the great line.
Um,
First I have fun.
but again, it showed the absence. The screenwriters weren't there, so other people had to kind of step in and do these things. Because I think the writers and I think Christopher Reeve, who had a story credit on the film, I think they had envisioned Nuclear Man as being having some physical characteristics of Christopher Reeve, because he is supposed to be grown by a hair, so he's got Superman's DNA. It was logical that he would look like Christopher Reeve in some respect, but of course that would have been hugely expensive to have split screen and all kinds of visual effects when they meet. So I think they must have been quite disappointed when, no offense to Mark Pillow, but he's not the original conception of the character.
Yeah. I mean, everything was a last minute, well, let's do this instead of that. And you can see that in the film. People are kind of phoning it in, and I'm not, they're doing a great job, but what are we trying to say? What's the point of this? What, okay, saves the world. That's good, but we need more. You need the antagonist, to come in and now all these people are getting very tired on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the plot issues do stem from having those 45 minutes of the film cut out. But again, it's great, isn't it, Gene? Having fun again. It's done so nicely. And I imagine Sidney Furie had to shoot this very quickly, so it was almost shot like almost like a TV movie or a TV episode. There's not as much coverage as you would expect for
there's
film. It's just
trying to maintain.
I mean, John Shirley was the editor for this, and he edited to Live and Let Die and Man with the Golden Gun, so two great Bond films. So there's no doubt.
So I like John. I mean, so many people that had such incredible resumes and CVs and worked on such excellent stuff.
I don't think John's with us anymore, is he? I think he passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
But so he fantastic, quality editor. But I don't think some people, editing this must have been quite a challenge because of the coverage and all that sort of thing. And again, the time, we wouldn't have the time to.
Well, if you're gonna, the editor can make or break a film, and sometimes in between, but you've got to give the editor the material.
Yeah.
And you can't just think, well, I'm going to cut it in camera so the editor doesn't have any input. No, editors will take as much as you can give them and sometimes come up with a completely different concept that at times can be much better.
Yeah.
where did David Lean, where did he start? He was an editor,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken. So editing there is an art to it, and it's everything from don't cross the line to how do you cut on the certain point and the reaction. It's a mystery to me, but it's fascinating to see it when it's done well.
Yeah. And I think what John brings to this is a really good pace. I think it does clip along quite nicely.
Well, yeah, considering that there were 2 whole reels cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not bad animation. Olsen Lane White.
Because was it a last minute idea to put the sort of electrical sparks around Nuclear Man? I think I read it was.
It needed something.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it just
been too static, I think.
So yeah, again, there's a lot of trying to make it work.
Yeah, and as you say, it's a really good job of it as well. Because I'm guessing, I believe that because there was so little time in making the film, that Olsen Lane and White couldn't do all the effects, partly because of the time constraints, but also the huge number of effects. So you had to source lots of effects houses, and the quality of what some places returned wasn't quite what you wasn't quite up to scratch, I believe.
Well, we were very fortunate that the effects editor in England, Graham Farrow, I think was Graham. God, what a great guy. So he came from England over to Burbank in California, where where Olsen Lane White was set up. And so he became the interface for us. And back in those days, there was you had to put the shot together, put it on a plane, send it over to England, have it approved, disapproved, send it back, or phone in the changes or fax in the changes. So it actually worked pretty well because we used the time difference to our advantage. So while we were sleeping, they were deciding what they liked or didn't like about the shot. And when we get up, we go in, there'd be a whole list of stuff to do. In a very short period of time, I might add. But now, thanks to digital, it's almost too much information because there becomes lazy filmmaking. Oh, we'll fix it in post. Oh, we'll do that. Oh, we'll do it. Yeah, let's not just move it along. So it's completely different time. And I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, but this is all we knew at the time. There were dreams that and thoughts that digital, will go from analog with optical printers, and that will go to digital one day, and where it'll be just pixels and you just manipulate the pixels. And I would say to people, that's the future. And of course, people would say, you're crazy. I remember being interviewed by a French journalist, and when I told him that, he goes, "Oh, that would never happen." I go, "Okay, fine." And this is the end of the interview. That is ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah, it just shows people don't really know what they're talking about a lot of the time, do they really? And I always find people who don't know what they're talking about seem to say it with such confidence as well.
This is a nice piece. It does works pretty well.
Yeah, it's really good comic timing by all of them here, I think. And
So where's he going to change? How about in this limousine? Okay, good idea.
yeah, it's well done, isn't it? And but it's a lovely bit when Lacey came down to the lobby just then, and Clark's running a bit late, and he sees her, and he almost slips on the floor and just waves to her. I thought that was a really nice moment. I've always worried what would happen if one of those plant holders would have fallen. It would have killed somebody, wouldn't it, on the streets below?
When say that again, sorry.
They've got those plant pots on the top where Crystal Reeve is on the left. I could just, if they're in real life, I can just see them falling over and stuff. And they always worried me when I watched the film. They don't look particularly secure.
Well, that was intentional, I'm sure.
Because I know in reality it's 10 feet off the ground, but again, it's a nice.
Yeah, wouldn't you want to get in the spa? I mean, it's a nice spa. You got.
But what if they
come in? Don't come in. Close the door.
I think if they got Mel Hemingway into the actual spa pool, maybe the film would have made money. I don't know, but might have been popular. I know sometimes people do criticize Sidney Furie in terms of how he directed it, but this scene I think is very well directed.
Yeah. Wait a minute, where'd he go? It's the French farce sequence.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I'll look out there. Oh, Maglite. Interesting. Product placement. Oh, and over there, even though it makes no sense, is the Empire State Building.
Yeah. It's interesting that Lex knows where Superman is, so he's looking directly at him rather than the disembodied voice in the first film.
Well, you know, if you've never been to New York, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Now he's flying. So he looked up, but now he's going up. Well, now he's okay.
But I think the films always do that, don't they? They always play with geography, and unless you know the place that they're doing, that then you wouldn't perhaps notice the inconsistencies.
What's the guy, the thing sitting by the stairs on the right hand side of frame?
Oh, I don't know. It's a bit weird, a bit modern art, I think, but
yeah,
there's lots of very quirky things. If you look behind the bottles over Gene Hackman's shoulder to the right, where he's blocking it now, but there's an interesting sort of figure, and I think there was
and the thing is, if the movie isn't working, that's what you start to look at all the other stuff.
Well, yeah, so
and kind of keep your interest going. Why is that blue thing in the back? What is that? which is okay.
Because I think there was a sarcophagus in one of the scenes. I think maybe in the deleted scene. So yeah, it is very. And again, that's a nice little matte painting with the behind Nuclear Man.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, after that shot, it seems to disappear.
Gosh, boy.
I think Mark Pillow does a very good job because he's new to acting at this point, and it's I think it's a good role that he plays here. Do you know where the idea for Gene Hackman doing the voice of Nuclear Man came from? Whether it was always conceived that he'd do the voice, or
I think, yeah, I can't remember. It was a good idea. It was probably Gene Hackman's idea. But he would make it, he would say things to Sydney, and we would do this with Sydney going, you know, we see him in the morning, go, Sid, that's a great idea you had, that I should do the voice, you know, such a, or this or that. So it's kind of the oldest trick in the business. Make the director think it was his idea. And that way he'll go, yeah. Or you just, he'll do it. And I said, what do you mean? It wasn't my idea. No. But you can only use that on occasion. So you gotta select your timing has to be right.
I think it's a nice effect of the footprints on the tiles, the scorch mark of our tongue.
First, I have fun.
Yeah. Again, this is a nice shot of them falling down it's not too bad.
Oh, so difficult. Oh God, now his suit is green.
But it's when they split, Superman just sort of falls down a natural way. But
and suddenly they're in space.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna hit him and he's going to go down here, and then he's going to go over here. And now, nice matte painting by Peter Ellenshaw.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, he whipped that out a couple of days. Boom, boom, boom. Oh.
Again, I think pretty good model work, pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think the only thing that lets it down is what people would have called mortar vision, of him being able to actually fix bricks with his just looking at the like he does now.
Yeah.
But as we saw from Aaron Price's footage, the intention was that Superman would be seen almost a blur going, putting the bricks back up, and then sort of setting them with his heat vision, but of course that could be done.
It costs more money.
Yeah.
God forbid.
I mean, having got a lot of the fight in space, did that make it easier because of the black background, or is that partly why it was?
I think, yeah. Again, that's just, oh God. See, none of this matches. They go down into a volcano, but then there's a miniature volcano out here, and no consistency. Oh, and here, where do we have this? Oh, yeah, a tribute to stairs. And, oh, God.
I think some of the maps
have them all stand in the corner.
Yeah, they go in the house. They don't go inside, do they, or anything like that? But I think some of the map paintings in this sequence, Martin Asprey did them, which I think they stand up very well. Yeah, good lava effect is on the.
Perfect. How does he do that? That works so well. Yes, here. So I'll just cool the flames, and now the nuns will be safe. What a great miracle. Yeah, no problem.
Again, it's lovely that Superman is seen as multicultural figure speaking in Italian.
He's Superman.
Yeah. He seems less Americanized in this than perhaps in some other incarnations, which is that he's a
Well, yeah, Superman's an American, right?
yeah. But on the other hand, in this film, he seems to be much more of a
He's
representing
the
the
man
world.
of he's super, so
Yeah,
he understands different cultural things.
yeah. So there seems to be more of a
He has
more
so
factor
many
in it.
powers
Yeah.
that this poor Mark Pillow. Oh God, oh dreadful stuff. I'm sorry.
And I think Martin was saying that he had the idea of Nuclear Man dropping the Statue of Liberty on in New York. I think that was one of his additions to the script.
Okay, so
And I think the flying shots are very, the physical, practical flying and the cape movements and all that. I think it's some of the best that you see in the Chris Lee Superman films. Again, great plate work.
I'll just do this. I'll just make it go down here. Oh. Oh.
Because this shot in particular looks quite washed out on the DVD.
Yeah.
I think we're watching now, but the Blu-ray there's much more color to it, so that they've gone back.
Well, again, that's part of the problem, trying to keep his suit blue and keep the contrast up. I mean, it's not these days, it's a dial. You just done it this way and you get the immediate feedback. Back then, you put stuff together, send it into the lab, keep your fingers crossed, and then you see it the next day. If it doesn't work, go back and recomposite. If it really doesn't work, go back and reshoot.
Yeah.
None of which were really options. It's like, let's go. That's good enough.
Yeah.
Well, good enough is never good enough.
Yeah. I mean, when you came onto this film, was it always going to be based at? Was it based at Pinewood by the time? Because I know they wanted to shoot at Pinewood, and then they moved to Elstree because Canon purchased Elstree Studios. Were you based at Elstree, never at Pinewood?
Well, we're gonna shoot at Pinewood, and that lasted for a day. And then Canon said, "Oh no, we're shooting at Elstree because we just bought the studio there."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how does that work? But here's the other thing is that Golem and whatever the other guy, they never read the script. They had no idea what was in the script. And so they would just come up with these crazy ideas. And one of them once was there was an Iron Maiden billboard on the way to the studio, which had fingernails, big fingernails.
Yeah.
And they said to me or to Sydney, "You need to have fingernails, big fingernails." Why? Because they'd seen it. They would get films mixed up all the time because they were shooting so many.
Yeah.
So they thought there was an underground sequence somewhere in Superman. No, that was in another movie. It was.
Yeah.
So just was one crazy thing after another. It just became laughable.
but there's so many bad qualities that the producers had, but did they have any good qualities? Anything that maybe redeemed them slightly as people, or was it kind of all pretty much?
No, they were just con men.
Yeah.
They just kind of took the money and ran, didn't care what happened. It was naughty.
Yeah. I also wondered why they went into the film business, really, because they seem to have yeah, I don't know.
Well, everybody wants to be in the film business. It's not all autographs and sunglasses, people.
No.
It's actually really hard work.
Yeah.
But somebody else can do that. The producers, why do you think so many films were shot in England starting at the beginning of the year? It's because Harrods had its January sales. And I'm serious about this.
Yeah.
So the producer and his producers and their wives would go and they'd be in pre-production or whatever, and they'd be shopping at Harrods. And yeah, that was what it was about. Now, not every producer is that way.
No.
So,
just some, yeah. When you came onto the film, was more of the original crew from Superman involved, or were they already kind of? It was clear from the beginning that they were out the door.
I think I had finished. Boy, I get the dates all mixed up, but I'd finished on a movie. Maybe it was Empire Strikes Back. I can't remember. Anyway, and I was on holiday with my wife, my then wife, in Singapore.
Yeah.
And I got a telegram or whatever it was then saying from Sidney Furie, because I'd worked with Sidney on a film that never saw the light of day at 20th Century Fox. It was called Marvel of the Haunted Castle. It was not a very good script, but had a lot of effects in it.
Yeah.
And so he decided to call me in Singapore, and he was in England at the time, and he said, "I need you to come work on. I'm doing Superman 4." And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Sounded like a good gig.
Yeah.
And he said, "When can you come here?" I said, "Well, I'm on holiday. I've got another week or so." Said, "No, I need you now." I said, "What?" He said, "Get on a plane, get a flight, and come from Singapore to London."
Yeah.
And I said, "No." I said, "I'm not doing that. I got to, I don't have any clean laundry." I mean, let's look at the practicality here. And he said, so we did finish our holiday, and then we flew back to LA. And I was there for one night. I got on a plane and flew to England. Now, by the time I landed at Heathrow, I didn't know where I was. I mean, I was jet lagged, time zones. I'm just, and I get picked up at the airport by the driver, the production driver. And I said, oh, great. Well, get me to the hotel. And so I can, get some rest. He goes, no, I have instructions to take you immediately to a production meeting. I'm
Wow.
going, what? So Sydney was oblivious. Like, come on, gotta get going here. Yeah. I could have walked away, but I was just too, I was too great shot, that last shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was done by my father last minute. And if you look at it, all the cars on the left were painted, but you don't notice it.
Yeah, it's a good shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I take it you brought your father on the film. Part of it was practicality of just needing an extra pair of hands, or was it was that the motivation initially?
I was in pretty desperate straits, and it was a matter of my father said, yeah, I'll come and I'll help. And I said, no, you don't want to do that. And I got a call from my mother, and she said, your dad really wants to come and do that. I said, really? It's a mess. She says, no, he wants to come and do it. So he did. And I broke the news to Sydney, and Sydney was thrilled, and everybody was very happy. And it was great. But it was such an intense shoot that eventually my father said, okay, I'll do this, I'll do that. And he did stuff, and he got I was going to do the matte paintings myself after, boom, boom, I'll just throw them together, which was a stupid idea. And so my dad spent, I think, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, trying to set up the matte department in England, which was a near impossibility because they just didn't have the equipment. Everything was chaos. And so eventually he said, well, that's as much as I can do. I got to go home. So I went home, and we ended up, I think, shooting 2 of his shots in England, 2 of his paintings, and the rest, everything came back to Olsen Lane and White.
Yeah. There was a shot of Newcomer going up for all the floors just then.
Yeah.
And I think it was doing that scene that the stuntman, I think it's called John Lees, his wires broke.
Yeah.
Fell 25 feet, and both his heels were broken, and that ended his career.
Broke his ankles, right?
Yeah, both his ankles. Yeah. And
that was awful.
He did successfully take Karen to court and got compensation.
Well, it never should have happened. I mean, no shot is worth an injury or worse. No. And I wasn't there for the shot, so it's easy for me to say. But you can't do that. You pull him up, or only so far, and then cut to something else and put a mattress or something underneath. Yeah. Don't let anybody say, oh, I'll do it for real. Well, no, you don't, especially these days. And I admire stunt people, and I admire actors, and Tom Cruise evidently does his own stunts, but you've got to be crazy to let your star do stunts.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's what happens if, well.
Yeah. And these scenes here Chris Reeve directed this sequence. And occasionally you see
So was that where he steps on his foot?
Steps on his foot, yes, because I think we said Mark.
Yeah, so he shows up, big, hunk shows up on the set and he's limping. It's like, what the hell happened? I twisted my ankle. Oh, well, suck it up. So I think that was Chris's idea. He said, I'll stamp on his foot at the beginning. So then he can limp through the rest of the show.
Yeah, it's good thinking on your feet, isn't it? Yeah. We were saying that Gene Hackman does Nuclear Man's voice. I wonder whether if they used Chris Reeve's voice over Nuclear Man, whether that would have worked, or whether it wouldn't have been quite as sinister as Gene Hackman. I don't know.
Yeah, boy, I don't remember that.
I was just thinking because he's supposed to be a clone, maybe the voice would have. I don't know whether it would have been too distracting to have that, but because when you came on as a visual effects supervisor, did you have any idea that you'd be doing second unit as well?
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, nobody else was doing it. I mean, David Lane was doing the aerial stuff. And then, Chris said on the moon, he said, I'd like to shoot second unit. Okay, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Be my guest. But, I knew that I'd have to kind of help out a little bit, stand next to him and, because he's in the shot and he wants to direct the shot. Tricky stuff, because you've got to consider angles and lenses and all that.
Yeah. So you would have
he was such a good guy.
So you would have helped him out on the moon sequence. Is there any other scenes particular that you remember contributing to, directing wise?
No, it was basically he helped out on the moon stuff, and David Lane did the aerials, and I did the other stuff. That's a technical term. Other stuff.
Some perhaps the fight outside with Nuclear Man arriving and where's the woman, that fight sequence, and this sort of thing. And again, I think the only thing that's criticised is the fact that Lacey can breathe in space. But again, we were saying that making these scenes in space might have made it easier visual effects wise. So that might be why that certain things.
Well, so if she can't breathe in space, what are you going to do?
Well, yes.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
And, oh, that's another matte painting in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just happens to have this thing open. Yeah, okay.
It seems a lot dangerous to leave a nuclear exhaust port open, but there we go.
Those are pretty good. Those are on the stills that I took with the Hasselblad, and then the effects animators did the lights.
Yeah, very effective, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes it works.
I mean, would you have any memories of Jackie Cooper or Mark McClure or Margot Kidder, the core team?
That everybody, they were I mean, I didn't really interact with them much because I was off doing other shots, and uh, they were pros. They were really good.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I think everyone must have been aware that the production wasn't right, and the things, there were problems behind the scenes, but they certainly let it, appear in their
well,
performance.
nobody gets up in the morning and says, "Okay, we're going to have to make do today because it doesn't, we've got all these problems."
Mm.
You just get up and go, "Okay, here we go. Let's
Yeah.
make it work."
Mm.
And otherwise you'll get so depressed, you'll just kind of go,
Yeah. Because I believe Chris fought very hard to actually go and shoot in New York and outside the UN for these scenes. Do you remember that struggle? And
Yeah.
obviously must be very disappointing to say we've got to do it in.
Well, it would have been hugely expensive. As I say, shooting in New York is crazy.
Yeah.
Milton Keynes, that'll do.
And again, it's a great shot of Chris Reeve coming in, and again, the flying work is, I think, really, really stunning, actually. When it's all practical one shots. I think it's why people. I mean, when I first started to talk to you, Harrison, about Superman 4, and you heard obviously that I was doing that event with Martin back in February, and were you kind of surprised that somebody was celebrating Superman 4 and it was getting attention, or have people in the past sort of been fans of it and told you they liked it?
Well, you try to have no expectations, not thinking it's going to go badly, but at a certain point, it's done, it's in the can, it's in the theaters, and you don't know. You have no idea if it's going to be good, bad, or indifferent. And I've worked on hits. I've worked on films that were flops. At the time, you're hoping for the best, but you're not worrying about it because you got the next shot to worry about. And it's we've got a cold front coming in, and you've got all exteriors to shoot, and the Boys Town set. There's all these stories of Star Wars and all sorts of movies where nature just decided it's going to snow today. And of course, the locals always say, it never snows this time of year. But as soon as a movie company comes into town, it snows. It's just a way of Mother Nature reminding you that you have no control over the weather.
Yeah. I mean, I think that because it was panned by the critics when it came out, and it made very little money. Did you sort of aware that the tide was turning and it was becoming a movie of interest, and actually people were saying, actually, we look into it, it's actually pretty good? Was that surprising after its complete failure at the time?
I think there's always the first movie, then there's a sequel, and then there's everything else where it just trails off, and you've already used the good story points in the first and maybe the second, but by the time you get to Fast and Furious 17, it's just still the same. Didn't we see this shot last time? Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the business. That's Hollywood. Nobody wants to take a chance. because there's too much money involved. So you try to play it safe. And when you play, play not to lose, you're not playing to win. And
Yeah.
it's easy for me to say because it's not my money. And yeah.
Would you have encountered Malcolm Christopher, the production manager, at all?
I don't. Yeah. Again, I was very fortunate because I was theoretically this bright boy who had, worked on these hit movies, so he might add a little something to help get us through the night.
Yeah.
Which, you're always very it's complimentary, but I lost a lot of sleep.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Superman 4, yeah.
I mean, looking at it again, is there bits that you think, oh, that's not as bad as I remember it, or is it kind of, it's still how you felt at the time?
Well, there's so much I've forgotten that it rekindles the memories. Now, how correct the memories are, I don't know, because it's all kind of shifted around and time. As I keep saying here, I'm not sure the timing, where we did this, which should we do that. But I've said it, I'll say it again. The best part about it was that the people who bailed me out of stuff, the pleasure of working with John Evans with a sterling British crew who had great reputations. And Richard Conway was just a saint.
Yeah.
And wouldn't let me fail in a sense. It's like, I'd be like, oh God, they would give me therapy and say, it's okay. We'll get this. We'll figure it out. And there you go. It's a movie.
I had the other question come in. Do you know what Christopher Reeve's thoughts about the final film was when he saw it? Did you get a sense of how much it hurt?
He had hoped it would be better.
Yeah.
He supported it, and I don't. He never had anything bad to say. He was never, he would have suggestions, but he wouldn't have criticisms.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. You don't want people to, in some movie sets, it's, if you're doing a lousy job, it doesn't work. Okay, we're going to wrap for the day and we'll go, hide in a corner and feel sorry for ourselves. Wasn't that way on most of the movies I worked on. It was like, here we go. Come on, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it's only film, although when you're working on low budget stuff, film's expensive.
Yeah.
So I worked on an independent thing that I directed, independent film, and I said, well, we don't have to we'll use short ends, which is only partial full reel because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
And but that didn't work either because we'd get one take and then it would be reload the magazine. So then you'd have to run off and wait while the poor camera assistant is reloading the magazine. So you're not saving any money at all because the
Right.
crew's going later and they're all getting grumpy. And now, yeah. So my advice to anybody who wants to make a film is go make one. But start, you know, understand that you're not going to just step in and immediately do Titanic.
Yeah.
Baby steps. You got it. You hope that it will go well, but the gods will trip you up every chance they get. Well, that's an exaggeration, but that's how you learn. That you take as my good friend Ray Scalise once said, and I've repeated it many times, failure is the fertilizer to success.
Yeah, that's very true, yes.
Yeah. Nobody just, picks up a cricket bat or anything and just magically walks out onto the pitch and goes up against the best team professionals in the world and hits it out of the park. It doesn't happen that way. You gotta screw up and then try to get past that.
Yeah.
And not make the same mistake again.
Yeah, if we're lucky, yeah. Did have a question that came in. Was there a film, Harrison, that you would have liked to have worked on? Perhaps something that you got close to working on but fell through for certain reasons?
Top Gun.
Top Gun, yes, that'd be a good one. Yeah.
I was interviewed for it, didn't get the gig.
Well, it's their loss.
Well, the guy who did get the gig, I'm thankful I didn't get the gig because Gary Gutierrez did an incredible job. And sometimes you're lucky you don't get those gigs, but I've had a pretty good run, and I've had a lot of upbeat things, and every movie's different, even the sequels.
Yeah.
And let's face it, there's only did I say this last time? There are only 2 sequels that are any good, and the first one is really part of the first movie, but they split it in 2. That's The Godfather.
Yeah, Godfather, yeah.
Pretty good, great movie. And the other one is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Great sequel.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been a great sequel if the first one hadn't set it up so beautifully. I'm sure there are other examples, but these days, movies are expensive. I'm not crazy about reboots or whatever you want to call them, remakes. You only lose your virginity once, so why try to keep going back and recreating it? But then go out and do something crazy. And I've seen movies that theoretically weren't hits or whatever you want to call it, but just affected me deeply. And because I was in awe. One of them I'm thinking of right now is Breaking the Waves. One of them Fern films. And I just see these movies and I go, whoa, you feel, wow, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Take me for the ride. I'm not going to worry about whether the continuity is this or the prop was over here or now it's over here. just let me experience it. And I give to the movie, because the movie wraps you in itself, in its story. And I think that's admirable. And not too many people can pull that off.
No,
Steven Spielberg seems to do a pretty good job.
he does, yeah, he does indeed.
Francis does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But, you know, look, even George Lucas says Howard the Duck.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can't hit out the park all the time, can you? That's it's just not.
And I have my Superman 4. So that's mean. I don't mean that. No.
I think fans probably prefer number 4 to the third one with Richard Pryor. I think because even though there's more money in the third one, this one feels more like Superman 1 and 2 in terms of its, its sensibilities, which is probably why it's become, a cult classic, whatever that term refers to. But am I right in saying that it was Captain EO that you came off to do Superman 4? Because we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, Captain.
So I was just having a look at your
Captain EO.
That was 80. That was 86.
Yeah. So Captain Ego, as we called it. that was theoretically a 2-week shoot.
Yeah.
Ended up a year.
Oh wow. Was that just the complexity of it, or was it sort of?
It's just the studio, Disney, had a new group of execs come in, and they wanted to make a big bang, if you will, a big show. And so they said, well, let's we could get Michael Jackson and do this Captain EO for Disneyland. It'll be a big hit, and so on and so forth. And it won't take very long to do, because it's only, it's basically a music video. A year later, and craziness. And by the way, it's going to be in 3D. Oh, well, that's okay. But you can do effects in 3D, can't you? Sure. Yeah. So a lot of it was to fake it to make it, but it was a lovely experience, because Michael Jackson was he was a pro. He would, his contract said, he could only work for so many hours, and then did it. And at the end of his time, we'd bring in the second unit or auxiliary unit to shoot inserts and all sorts of other stuff. And Michael would say, if you want me to stay, I'll stay. I don't mind.
Yeah.
And that attitude was really very helpful. And he was willing to do that. And I don't know what happened in other cases later on. I mean, I wasn't there, but I just knew him as a very sweet guy who was deprived of a childhood. He didn't have a childhood. He was a member of the Jackson 5, and then he was this cute little thing with this great voice and could dance like nobody could dance. So
I agree completely. I mean, if you didn't have a childhood and you're rich, you would create your own second childhood, wouldn't you? So
and certainly had daddy issues, so in a sense, I do miss him, because those people are not always, actors are not always that way, but a lot of actors are, I worked on Dave with that Klein fellow, It's amazing.
Yeah, good Kevin Kline, isn't he? So he's very sort of
Yeah,
kind of one of those sort of down to earth guys, and
yeah,
not sense of us being a star or anything like that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
What's a couple of projects I wanted to just talk to you about briefly, Harrison? You did Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, which just struck me as being, because your father worked on Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Yeah.
So, and then you did Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. So sort of, it had a crossover in some, it's similar in some respects.
Well, I stole a lot of ideas and setups from Darby O'Gill,
All right, yeah.
which brilliant movie. Nicely was nominated for an Academy Award. Oh, no, it wasn't. But that's neither here nor there. And so when we did Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, I didn't want to do an old blue screen, wanted to avoid as much as possible, and had a wonderful first director who was there for a month and he got fired, and then oh, I forgot his name. Randall Kleiser came in, and he was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, well, the other director wanted to do this, this, and this, but if we do this, we do, people call it forced perspective. I call it split scale. Doesn't matter what you call it. I think it will look pretty good. And he said, yeah, go for it. So when you have somebody trust you, it's kind of more pressure, but it's reaffirming that you know what you're doing. And Randall would say, what do you want to do? What should be the first shot in the morning? And then they'd wrap the crew and I'd do the setup for the first shot, into the night and have it all ready so that when they came in, they could get the first shot before the kids got tired.
Yeah.
And cranky.
Yeah.
So, and trying to get a 2-year-old to look at an eye line. So he's got to look not at the person, but off to the side. So I decided I got a big piece of foam core and put a picture of a lollipop or something on it, and I dance around back here and I go, oh, look at the lollipop, isn't it? Because what's the idiot with the board dancing around? But again, you find a way.
Yeah, I watched it quite recently, and it holds up very well.
Yeah, and again, a wonderful Rick Moranis was great fun, and once Randall took the helm, it was challenging, but there was no you have to do better. Come on, can't you do this? Can't you do that? There was, as I say, communication. You got to have communication as a visual effects person or anybody on the crew to get inside the director's head and understand what his vision is, as well as the writer's vision. So the writer had a vision. Hopefully the director will interpret that and do it. And it's your job to be supportive, not to change it, not to be clever. Nobody, you don't get points for degree of difficulty.
No, that's true. And the other film I wanted to ask you about was one of my favourites, Ghost.
Yeah, well, I didn't last very long on Ghost.
Oh, right. Detail.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it was I was, whether it was conscious or not, I was asked to come up with a way to do the effects and all that, and because they didn't want to use ILM, which I didn't know why. Well, ILM said, no, we're too busy. We've got too many other stuff. So basically, I became the placeholder until ILM could come in and do the effects. Pure and simple. They did a great job. Well, it's also Boss Film did effects, and then there were some other opticals. But that's the way it goes. And it was not a fun experience. And when I finally got fired, I tried to quit once, and they said, no, you got to stay here. You're not getting off that easy. I said, okay. And then eventually they said, yeah, go away. And I went home, and my then wife looked at me because I came home at about, midday, and she goes, why aren't you on the set? And I had this big grin on my face. And she said, and why are you smiling? And I said, I got fired. She thought I was nuts. 2 weeks later, Dick Tracy fell into my lap.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, I think probably, yeah, much better project, because that's you're quite fond of Dick Tracy, aren't you?
Yeah. You never know what's around the corner.
When you say you were on the set on Ghost, was that with the actors, or was that doing or different sort of things for the special effects, I guess?
Yeah, well, the whole concept of Ghost kept changing. It was going to be this, going to be that, and again, it was they were Patrick Squeezy, no, Patrick Swayze.
Right, yeah.
Was, I'm sorry, Patrick, great guy, and Tony Goldwyn, but the real treat was Whoopi.
Yeah,
she was funny. She was irreverent, but she gave the performance, and she treated everybody very well as an equal, and loved her to death.
So, well, I think we'll start to wrap up the event now, Harrison. One interesting thing I wanted to mention to the audience who might not know is that Warner Archives have been doing quite a lot of great releases on Blu-ray. They released an extended version of Superman the movie that was originally just shown on TV, and it was a 3-hour version of so it's like 45 minutes more footage. And so people have been saying, well, why can't they do Superman 4 on a Warner Archive release? And the guy who is sort of one of the big decision makers in Warner Archive is aware that there is fan interest in this project. And
that's good.
And there has been a bit of research, and they have, through various documentation, they've discovered they do have the complete version of the film in the archive. They haven't lost it. It is sitting there. Whether it's the work print that we talked about, the deleted scenes, or whether it's finished effects, we don't quite know. But there's hope that maybe we'll see it maybe not quite like a Justice League director's cut, but maybe something in between. So hopefully it'll have more life going forward. Because I assume you don't regret being part of Superman. It's something that you're quite happy with, to be part of that legacy.
No regrets.
Well, I think that's probably a lovely place to end, Harrison. So, yeah, I've certainly had no regrets about this evening. So, you've had a really good conversation. Well, I think all's probably left me is just to wish you a very Merry Christmas, and hopefully next year things are better COVID-wise, and maybe we'll chat again sometime in the future.
I would like that.
Me too, very much, Harrison.
You've been great to have these conversations with, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Oh yeah, they've been wonderful for me as well. So whenever you want to chat, I'm always game. So
Okay.
So thanks very much, Harrison. Have a lovely weekend, and take
Thank
care.
you.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Phil. Bye.
Bye-bye.